I came home for Christmas, expecting warmth, family, and the smell of Mom's famous cookies. Instead, I found an empty house, a heartbroken grandmother eating cold leftovers, and a note that would change everything. Spent your $8,500 loan on a family cruise. Take care of Grandma while we're gone. My name is Alex, and this is the story of how my family stole Christmas, abandoned the woman who raised them, and how I made them pay for every single dollar. I didn't knock. Why would I? It was my parents' house, the one I'd practically been paying the mortgage on for the past 3 years. I was supposed to be home for Christmas, like I promised, like I always did. But when I pushed open that front door, the warmth and cheer I expected simply didn't exist. The tree was lit, sure. That cheap plastic star blinked like it was trying to apologize for something. But the silence, God, the silence was heavy, suffocating. No voices laughing, no wrapping paper crinkling, no cinnamon in the air or the smell of burnt cookies that Mom always managed to make despite following the same recipe for 20 years. Just emptiness, and the faint clinking of a fork against a plate. "Hello," I called out cautiously, stepping inside. My voice echoed in the hallway like I was calling into a tomb. "In here, sweetheart," came a voice from the kitchen. Soft, tired, heartbroken. I turned the corner and there she was, Grandma Dottie, sitting alone at that old kitchen table in her knitted purple sweater, the one she'd worn to every family gathering for the past 5 years. In front of her sat a plate of cold stuffing and half-eaten ham. Christmas dinner, reheated and lonely. I blinked, trying to process what I was seeing. "Where's everyone?" She didn't answer at first. Just gave me this sad, toothless smile that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. Then she slid a folded note across the table. Her hands trembled as she did it. Those same hands that had held me when I was sick, that had taught me to tie my shoes, that had never once failed to show me love. I picked up the note. It wasn't even in an envelope. Just a torn sheet of notebook paper. My name scrawled across it in black pen. The kind of casual cruelty that takes your breath away. Spent your $8,500 loan on a family cruise. Sorry. Take care of Grandma while we're gone. Love, Mom. I stared at those words until they blurred. I didn't speak. Couldn't speak. My brain stopped processing around loan and cruise. That money, that $8,500. And, see, it was for my dental surgery. I'd saved for over a year. Worked double shifts, skipped meals, canceled plans. Every dollar carefully put away for the procedure that would finally fix the damage from the accident that nearly killed me 2 years ago. Gone. On a cruise. Grandma watched me like a soldier watches a minefield. Carefully, silently, waiting for the explosion. I guess they didn't think you'd mind," she said softly, folding a napkin with shaking fingers. "They left yesterday." I sat down hard. The chair felt colder than the room. No warning, no phone call. They just took the money and left you here. She gave a dry laugh that held no humor at all. "Oh, honey, you know they only call when they want something." I nodded slowly, feeling something dark and cold growing in my chest. This wasn't new. The taking, the using, the casual cruelty dressed up as family obligation. It was just louder this time. More obvious. More cruel than I thought even they could manage. Grandma took a small sip of orange juice, looked me dead in the eyes with those steel gray eyes that had seen 83 years of life, and said, "We'll fix this." I said nothing. But inside, something broke. And something else, something much colder and infinitely more dangerous, started to grow. Grandma went to bed early that night. Said she was tired. Said her hips couldn't take much more waiting. She kissed me on the cheek, patted my arm with those frail fingers and whispered, "You always were the only one who stayed kind." Then she shuffled away with that little limp she'd had since falling down the stairs 2 winters ago. The fall that nobody else had bothered to take her to physical therapy for. The one that left her walking with a cane because her own children were too busy to care. I sat alone in that house for hours. No TV, no lights, just me and that note. That goddamn note. The loan. My money. The money I'd earned working night shifts and weekends, driving Uber after my day job, freelancing until my eyes burned, skipping meals, skipping sleep, skipping life. $8,500 gone on champagne and buffets while Grandma ate leftovers alone on Christmas. I opened the family group chat on my phone. Silence. Not even a Merry Christmas. Not even a photo. Nothing. I scrolled up through months of messages, looking for, I don't know, some sign that they'd planned this, some hint that they'd always intended to steal from me and abandon the woman who raised them. And there it was, November 15th. Mom's message: "Don't forget to transfer the loan to Dad's account. We need to book before the prices jump." Loan dosh. They never called it a gift because they knew it wasn't. They knew from the beginning they had no intention of paying it back. I remembered my mom's voice when she pitched the idea. That fake concerned tone she used when she wanted something. "It's just a short-term loan, sweetie. We'll pay you back by February at the latest. You can always reschedule your dental thing." And I'd nodded, because that's what I always did. When they wanted money for Jacob's school fees because he dropped out twice and wasted their savings, I nodded. When they needed help with Dad's gambling debts after he lost $3,000 at the casino, I nodded. When Emily needed rent money after she lost her job, which really meant she quit because her boss asked her to actually work, I nodded. I always nodded, because if I didn't, I was selfish, unhelpful, ungrateful. Because family comes first. Because after everything we've done for you, done for me. They kicked me out when I was 17 because I refused to lie for Jacob after he stole Grandma's prescription painkillers to sell at school. They didn't show up to my college graduation because they were too busy helping Emily move into her boyfriend's apartment. They forgot my birthday 3 years in a row. Not just forgot to call, forgot entirely. But when it came to money, oh, suddenly I was family again. By the next morning I had answers, and those answers made my blood boil. They weren't just on any cruise. They were on the majestic Aurora, a luxury ship sailing the Caribbean for 10 days. Suite deck deck, private butler, infinity pool access, gourmet dining, $3,000 per person. 4 of them. I knew because Emily posted a photo on Instagram, probably forgetting she hadn't blocked me yet. All 4 of them in bathrobes, clinking champagne glasses on a private balcony. The caption made me see red. Finally, some peace away from all the leeches and negativity. Leeches. They used my money, abandoned Grandma with leftovers on Christmas, and called me a leech. That was the moment the last wire inside me snapped. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was focused, clinical, dangerous. That evening, Grandma found me in the garage, hunched over Dad's old filing cabinet, surrounded by stacks of papers, bills, and records going back decades. She didn't say anything at first, just watched as I flipped through years of financial documents with the methodical precision of a forensic accountant. "I need to know everything," I told her without looking up. "Where the money went, what they did, who's complicit." She sat down beside me, pulled out a faded notebook from her purse, and started flipping through pages. "Let's start with 2016, she said, her voice steady as steel. "That's when your mother took my pension login information." And that's when I realized. Grandma had been keeping records for years, documenting every theft, every lie, every casual act of financial abuse. She'd been waiting for someone to finally listen. By midnight, we had numbers. By the next day, we had a plan. They rolled into the driveway 4 days later, like conquering heroes returning from war. The same people who'd left me and Grandma behind with a note and a refrigerator full of spoiled coleslaw now came home, laughing and tanned and completely unburdened by guilt. Their laughter spilled into the house before the door even opened. Emily came in first, dragging a designer suitcase, her hair braided with colorful ribbons, nails freshly manicured. "Ugh, I'm so glad to be back," she announced to nobody in particular. "That last dinner on the ship gave me hives. Too much lobster." Behind her, my mother swept in with the elegance of a soap opera villain. Sunglasses still on indoors despite the December gloom. "Did you even clean up a little?" she asked, stepping over Grandma's shawl like it was garbage. Dad followed, red-faced and bloated from cruise buffets, his Hawaiian shirt stretching across his expanding gut. He grunted when he saw me. "Oh, you're still here." Jacob entered last, 26 years old and still acting like the world owed him everything. He didn't even acknowledge Grandma, just dumped his bags by the couch and collapsed into Dad's recliner like he owned the place. I didn't speak. I was sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded, laptop closed in front of me. Calm. Ready. Dangerous. "Where's the food?" Mom asked, scanning the kitchen like she was reviewing a restaurant. "Please tell me you at least went grocery shopping." "In the fridge," I said quietly. "Still plenty of that ham you left behind." Jacob laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "Still hung up on that? Dude, just order takeout. It's not like you're broke." I stood up slowly, deliberately. "I'm glad you're all here. Sit down. I've got something to show you." Jacob rolled his eyes but slumped into a chair. Dad cracked his knuckles like he was preparing for a fight. Emily was too busy looking for an outlet to charge her phone to pay attention. Mom remained standing, arms crossed, that familiar look of superiority on her face. "What's this about, Alex? We're tired. Can't this wait?" "No," I said, opening the laptop. "It can't." I turned the screen toward them and clicked play. The first document filled the screen. Not just any spreadsheet, but a complete financial audit I'd spent 4 days building with Grandma's help. Every dollar transferred out of her pension account. Every ATM withdrawal made with her card at gas stations Dad frequented. Every Venmo payment Emily had requested for emergencies that turned out to be Sephora hauls and Apple Store purchases. "Where did you get this?" Mom asked, her voice suddenly tight with something that might have been fear. "From her bank," I said, gesturing to Grandma. "You should be more careful when you use someone else's password for 15 years. The second file opened. Screenshots of Venmo transactions. Account login records showing access from Mom's devices. Payment confirmations matching Dad's gambling habits down to the penny. Then came the emails. Mom writing to Emily. "He won't notice the cruise deposit missing. He trusts us too much." Emily replying, "He's such a softie. Plus, who leaves Grandma alone on Christmas anyway?" My jaw clenched, but I kept going. "I could stop here," I said, my voice deadly calm. "But I won't." I opened one final file. A voice recording. Clear audio of Kelly, Jacob's wife, standing on our porch 2 nights ago, sobbing. Her voice filled the room. I didn't want to go. I begged him not to do this, but Jacob said if Alex didn't give them the money, they'd just leave her and deal with the consequences later. I only stayed quiet because he promised it would all blow over. "I'm sorry. I couldn't take it anymore." Jacob sprang to his feet. "You recorded my wife? That's illegal." "No," I said, meeting his eyes without flinching. "She asked me to record her. She said she was tired of lying for you. Tired of watching you bleed people dry while pretending to be the victim." "Now, what am I saying?" Dad stood now, his face red with rage and embarrassment. "You little snake, you've been digging into our accounts like some kind of... Like someone who's done being robbed," I snapped, cutting him off. I opened one last tab on the laptop. A pre-written email with attachments. The subject line read, "Formal report of elder financial abuse, evidence attached." The recipient list made Mom's face go white. Social Security Fraud Division. Grandma's attorney. The county ombudsman. 2 local news outlets. "You have 48 hours, I said, my voice level as a surgical blade, "to return every penny, or I send this, all of it." Emily's hands were trembling now. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't ruin your own family." "No," I said, standing up slowly. "You ruined yourselves. I'm just sending the bill." That's when Grandma stood. She hadn't said a word through this entire confrontation. But now she walked to the head of the table, put her weathered hand on the back of Dad's chair, and spoke with the quiet authority of someone who'd raised 3 children and watched them become strangers. "I raised you," she said, her voice carrying the weight of 83 years. "I fed you. I changed your diapers. I protected you from your father's belt when you broke things. I worked 2 jobs to buy your school clothes. Her voice grew stronger. And when I couldn't walk properly anymore, when I needed you most, you left me with frozen green beans and moldy pie while you sipped champagne bought with stolen money. The room was silent. Dead silent. You're lucky it's him coming after you, she continued, nodding toward me. Because if it were just me alone. She trailed off, but the message was crystal clear. The woman who'd raised them with love had finally seen them for what they'd become. Dad muttered something under his breath and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Emily tried to hug Grandma, tears streaming down her face. Grandma turned away. Jacob just glared at me with pure hatred. You're not family anymore. I smiled, and for the first time in years it felt genuine. No, I'm finally free. They didn't believe I'd do it. Even after everything, even after I'd laid out their crimes in spreadsheets and recordings, they still thought they could manipulate me. Wear me down. Make me back off like I always had before. But that version of me. And the quiet one who nodded and paid and said, "Thank you for scraps." He died the moment they spent my dental surgery money on champagne and shrimp cocktails. The first 24 hours were silent. Not a single message. No apologies. No attempts at negotiation. Just Grandma and me in that empty house, eating microwave oatmeal and taking turns checking the bank account. Nothing. On the second day, I sent the email. Every file, every screenshot, every recording, attached and dated. Filed with the state authorities and CC'd to every news desk within a 100-mile radius. At 6:13 p.m. I received a response. Thank you for your submission. A case has been opened under file number FAA 24-1247. An investigator will be in touch within 72 hours. I showed the email to Grandma. She read it twice, then looked up at me with tears in her eyes. I never thought anyone would believe me. I believe you, I said. And now everyone else will too. On the third day, it exploded. Jacob was the first to panic. I woke up to 12 missed calls and a barrage of texts ranging from desperate to furious. We didn't mean it like that. You're seriously going to destroy your own family over some money? This is emotional manipulation. Take the post down and we'll talk. But I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded every message to Natalie, a lawyer who'd been working with Grandma's legal advisor since the day I pressed record on Kelly's confession. Natalie had the cold precision of a surgeon and the moral fury of a crusader. She'd seen cases like this before, adult children bleeding their parents dry while playing the victim when called out. By noon that day, she'd sent out official letters of intent to sue. To my parents, to Jacob, to Emily. The charges: elder financial abuse, unauthorized access to retirement accounts, misappropriation of family loans. The amount owed, with interest and damages, $14,322.85. Natalie wasn't bluffing. And neither was I. The next night, Mom showed up at the door. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. No makeup. Hair pinned back sloppily. Her usual mask of superiority had cracked completely. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaking. I crossed my arms. "Only if you brought a checkbook." She reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out a bank envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for $8,500. My loan money. "No interest?" I asked. "You're lucky to get this," she snapped, some of her old venom returning. "We're being destroyed by this mess you created. You're turning your back on your own mother." "No," I said, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. "I'm finally turning my back on a thief." The next week, Emily called me from her work phone. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. The article started circulating. She sobbed. "Did you see the title? Family steals disabled grandmother's pension, abandons her at Christmas." It got 42,000 shares overnight. Emily's employer, a boutique marketing firm, didn't appreciate the negative publicity. Her name was in every screenshot. Her message about leeches and negativity had become a meme. "I'm getting fired," she screamed into the phone. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I returned the favor," I said calmly. Now pay your share." She did, in 4 installments. I made her send proof of payment each time. No shortcuts. Jacob was the last to fall, and he fell the hardest. At first, he acted untouchable. "My boss doesn't care," he bragged on social media. "It's all fake news anyway." But then Kelly left him, filed for separation, told him she wasn't going to let their kids grow up in a house where lying and stealing were family traditions. She called me the same day she moved out. "I'm sorry it took me this long," she whispered. "But I've seen who he really is now, what he's capable of." "Do you need help finding a place?" I asked. She paused. "Only if it comes with no strings attached." I smiled. "Then yes, because you did the right thing." 2 days later, Jacob showed up at my door, unshaven, exhausted, furious, but also desperate. "You're a fool," he hissed. "You ruined everything." "No," I said, handing him a legal document. "You did." Natalie had filed a motion for garnishment of his wages. He tried to tear it up and throw it back at me. I didn't flinch. "Pay every penny," I said, "or we freeze your accounts. I'm not bluffing." By the end of the second week, all the money was returned. $8,500 from Mom and Dad, $3,100 from Emily, including interest, $2,700 from Jacob, humiliatingly borrowed from his own boss. Total, $14,300 and change. I used $3,000 to finally get my dental surgery, the procedure I'd waited 2 years for. The one that would let me smile without pain for the first time since my accident. Another $2,000 went to buying Grandma a proper lift chair and arranging for a home health aide to visit 3 times a week. The rest went into a locked, interest-bearing account in Grandma's name. Only she and I had access. When I showed her the paperwork, she cried. Real tears this time. Not from sadness, but from relief. "They took everything from me," she whispered. "But they didn't take you." And just like that, I had won. Not just the money, not just the legal war. I had won myself back. The weight I'd carried for years, the guilt, the obligation, the quiet shame of being less loved. It all fell away like a coat that never fit properly. For the first time in decades, I stood up straight. They stopped calling. They stopped texting. They stopped pretending I existed. And you know what? The silence felt different this time. Not the panicked silence of guilt or the heavy silence of shame, but clean, surgical silence. The kind that comes after you finally cut out something infected. In the weeks that followed, I didn't just collect money. I collected my life. I quit the job that was draining my soul and took a remote contract that paid better and gave me back my evenings. I took Grandma to her favorite diner, a dusty old place with checkered floors and the worst coffee in the state. She laughed more in 1 hour than I'd seen in 5 years. "I missed this," she said, dipping her French fries into her chocolate milkshake like she'd done since she was a child. "You mean your arteries missed this?" I teased. She shrugged with a mischievous smile. "I'd rather die laughing with you than choking on stolen shrimp with those snakes." I couldn't argue with that logic. Even peace has its ghosts, though. They didn't call, but they talked. Oh, they talked. Emily posted on Facebook about how some people don't understand what forgiveness means, paired with a photo of her lighting a candle at church. Mom told distant relatives that I'd manipulated Grandma in her old age, conveniently leaving out the part where she'd used Grandma's pension to pay off her credit card debt. Jacob went full delusional. Posted Instagram stories about toxic siblings with audio clips from TV shows, acting like he was the betrayed heir to some broken empire. The caption read, "Some people would rather see you fall than rise with you." I laughed for 10 minutes straight. Rise with him? He tried to burn me alive and dance in the ashes. They wanted to rewrite history, but I had the receipts. And I wasn't going back into the shadows. The turning point came 3 weeks later. I was at the grocery store with Grandma, pushing her cart and filling it with soup cans and ginger ale, when an older woman approached us. She was elegant, well-dressed, clearly familiar with our story. "Excuse me," she said, looking directly at me. "Are you the one from the article? The one who saved his grandmother? I tensed, not sure if this was going to be positive or negative. I guess so. She smiled, and it was warm and genuine. I just wanted to thank you for standing up, for not staying quiet. She looked at Grandma, then back at me. They did the same thing to my mother, but no one fought for her. I wish someone had. She touched my arm briefly, gently, then walked away. I turned to Grandma. She was frozen, hand on a soup can, tears welling in her eyes. I didn't think anyone saw us, she whispered. They do now, I said. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about money or revenge or proving I wasn't a pushover. This was about telling the truth out loud finally, after years of being silenced by guilt and obligation. The best part? I was done explaining myself, done justifying my actions, done apologizing for refusing to be a victim. The truth had made its way into the world, dragging their names behind it like a bag of trash spilling across the pavement. Every time they posted something, people remembered. Every time they lied, someone in the comments reminded them who they really were. Mom tried to rebuild her image by starting a cooking channel on YouTube, Cozy Kitchen with Carol. But in the first episode, someone commented, "Did you pay for that oven with stolen retirement money?" She deleted the channel 2 days later. Jacob tried getting a new job but didn't get past the background check. Apparently, having wage garnishment orders scared off potential employers. Emily disappeared for a while, then resurfaced with a new Instagram handle, @MyLifeForSay. She posted yoga pictures and inspirational quotes, claiming she was cutting out toxic people, which was hilarious, because I hadn't cut her out. I'd exiled her. Months passed. I moved into a new apartment. Quiet, clean, filled with furniture I chose myself. Nothing they had touched. Nothing they had influenced. I brought Grandma with me. One bedroom for her, one for me. She decorated hers with old photos and a blanket she'd crocheted in 1993. She called it the fort. One evening, she knocked on my door. "I have a question," she said, settling slowly onto my bed. "When you saw that note, the one they left, why didn't you just leave? Why did you stay?" I thought for a moment, then said, "Because I remembered who I was before they made me forget." She looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart." And that broke me more than any insult they'd ever screamed, because she meant it, and because no one else in that family ever had. A few weeks later, I ran into Kelly outside a coffee shop. She looked healthier, lighter, genuinely happy for the first time in years. She told me she was taking night classes, working toward her certification, trying to build something of her own. "I didn't know I could live like this," she said, "without being afraid of what he'd do next. You gave me that." "You gave yourself that," I corrected. "I just showed you it was possible." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "You changed more than just your own life, you know." And maybe, for the first time, I believed it. So here's my ending. You want to know what happened to the family? They destroyed their own reputation trying to bury mine. You want to know what happened to me? I stopped waiting for them to call me family and started building one with people who never made me beg for love. I sleep peacefully now with all the lights off, because I'm no longer afraid of what they'll take next. They already took everything they could, and I took it all back. Plus interest, plus damages, plus my dignity, plus my future. And Grandma? She sits in her lift chair every morning, drinking coffee that doesn't taste like disappointment, surrounded by photos of people who actually love her. She has a nurse who checks on her, money in an account they can't touch, and a grandson who finally learned the difference between family and people who share your DNA. That's what victory looks like. Not revenge, justice. Not destruction, liberation. Not the end of family, the beginning of a real one. They thought they were the main characters in this story. But main characters don't steal from old ladies and abandon them on Christmas. Main characters don't lie to the people who love them most. Main characters don't mistake kindness for weakness. I was never the main character in their story. But this story, this one is mine. And it has the ending I chose. The end